Okay, let's dig right in. I'm going to cue the song up. We're going to do our usual routine. We're going to listen to the tune and listen to establish where the pulse is, because without that, it's kind of the backbone of the tune. Once we have that underway, then we're able to make some other decisions about what to strum, which you already know. So why do I keep bantering about it? Because I want to keep reminding you it's not about picking up strum patterns for me. It's about you thinking about how you could determine your own strumming solution from you. Okay, let's take a listen to this new tune. This is a song called Lonely by Edie Carey. She's an American sort of folk singer of sorts, sort of folk pop. We were privileged here a few times. I'm in Canada. We were privileged to have her come up to our home and actually put on 2 house concerts for us. And we had a house full of people. It was very nice and intimate, just her and her guitar doing her music, and what a lovely experience. And once again, I contacted her, and as she left us her CD from the first house concert, I just asked if I could borrow one of the tunes again, if she would give me permission to let you guys listen. And she did. So here we are, and there's her album right there. Another Kind of Fire. I'll pull it up here, make sure I'm right. Yeah, I was right. It's Another Kind of Fire, but the song itself is called Lonely. So let's take a listen and start the process of determining the pulse. So here we go. Again, I have to try not to move to give you some hints as to what I might do.
You fall asleep with the window.
That's why I have the tea, by the way.
You love to listen to the night. When a storm muscles and leaves you broken, you're always.
Now, I've already got the pulse established in my mind. It's already there. That's how quickly it will happen.
You wish that your heart could be traded for one that will not bruise. But what good?
Okay. Right now, again, there's enough information just in what we heard to get the pulse established. At the very beginning of this tune, this was a bit tricky. It's not as evident because you really just have a solo guitar playing. Let's take a listen there and you'll hear that. There it is. So it's a guitar, or 2. There's no drum. So how do you figure that out? Well, you wait.
You fall asleep with the window
In this case.
open. You love to listen to the night. When a storm muscles and leaves you broken, you're always surprised.
There's the drum.
Sometimes you wish that your heart
It's doing this
could be
instead of a single hit.
traded for one that will not
But the first hit you hear
bruise. But what
is the beat.
good is a heart
There it is, sorry.
gone jaded? Sometimes only pain.
Have you got it yet? So you can hear the drum. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning again. We're going to listen again. And I'm going to reveal to you how I'm thinking about where the pulse is. And again, I'm thinking about that snare drum. And I'm thinking about it happening on beats 2 and 4. Therefore, beats 1 and 3 don't necessarily have a strong indicator going on, and I have to fill in that gap and then establish it, you know, with my bobbing head or my clapping hands, or ideally with my tapping foot. But again, just because of the setup here, you can't see my foot tapping, although it was tapping all along. Okay, we're going to listen again. my hand's doing right now is where the snare will be.
With the window open, you love to listen to the night.
And you might be doing this right now as well. Just
when a storm muscles and leaves you broken, you're always surprised. Sometimes you wish that your heart
that's where the snare was happening. It's going.
For a while it will not bruise.
But we're just interested in
but what good is
the
a
initial
heart
hit.
Gone jaded? Sometimes only pain tells.
For me, I had to listen that far into the song to get a really good sense of where the snare was. There was a subtle indication of where it would occur in the opening guitar by the way the guitar was accenting. Whoever was playing the guitar was putting purposeful accents on where the snare will ultimately be. If you didn't hear that, I have a bit of a cold today. If you didn't hear that, let me identify it for you. Right there. That's an accent. Now keep this going.
You fall asleep with the window.
And you'll see how it lines up with the snare. Pretty cool.
You love to listen to the night. When a storm muscles and leaves you broken, you're always surprised. Sometimes you wish that your heart could be.
So essentially, the guitar was giving me an indication of where the snare drum will end up being. But when the snare drum came in, it just confirmed what I was already thinking. So sometimes you have a guess, sometimes you have an idea, and you let the song run and you think you've got it. And then maybe later down into the tune, the drum comes in or some other prevalent instrument, and it can throw off your awareness of what you thought was the pulse. It's not a big deal. You just go back and you reevaluate. This is the learning process. You can't just get it with one listen at this stage. Yes, for some, it's easy. When I hear a tune right from the beginning, within the first measure or two, I know what I'm doing. So, but that's a lot of listening that's gone on for me and a lot of training that's gone on. And the same will happen for you. And it just gets shorter and shorter. Okay, given that I know where the snare drum is, now I'm going to sort of expand that and establish fully where the pulse is. Because the snare is not the pulse, it's part of the pulse. The snare is on 2 and 4, remember. We want the full 1, 2, 3, 4. So, back to listening. There's the snare. Here's the pulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Chord change, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chord change. Chord change. That's what's telling me where 1 is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
When a storm muscles and leaves you broken, you're always surprised.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sometimes you wish that your heart could be traded for a while and will not bruise. But what good is a heart gone jaded? Sometimes only pain tells the truth. You want it two ways.
See, in a relatively short period of time, learning how to listen for the pulse, listen for the snare, and even as I was hearing the chord changes, recognizing that commonly, very commonly, chords tend to change on beat 1, I was able to pull all 3 bits of information together quite quickly. You may not be able to do that yet. You may need to do several listenings just to establish the pulse. And that, whatever amount of time it takes for you to get that into your system, you need to do it if you want to benefit from the training of it. There's no other approach to it. It's entirely and completely a game that's born of experience. How do you get the experience? You have to just dive in and do it. Now, in an ideal world, you and I would be sitting side by side listening to this piece. I would be asking you, where's the pulse? Listen for the snare. Can you hear the chords changing? And in that experience, you get a more immediate and direct confirmation of how you're thinking. So it's valuable, of course, to be sitting with somebody live to help you figure this out as well. But in lieu of that, this is what we have. And I hope I'm doing relatively well at articulating for you where these events are occurring and how they're occurring, even though you're not sitting beside me. And it is a challenge. And it explains for many people why I talk so much about what I'm having you listen to. It's me trying to make sure that without me physically there with you, your head's going, okay, Steve, yeah, I get that. Oh, I didn't get that one. I guess I'm going to have to listen again. And of course, you can just, old school technology here, you can rewind the video and keep listening for these features. I won't lead you down the wrong path. What I'm establishing as the pulse is true. It's not my own, this is what I think is going on. If I got the pulse going like that in that tune, I can assure you that is the pulse. It's not because I'm supreme, it's because as I listen further into the song, the nature of the snare drum showing up confirms that I've got it right. Once I've got that, the rest of what we do is relatively straightforward. It's very stepwise and orderly. So at this point, we've got the pulse, we've got an awareness of the snare, and I even started to suggest to you from the previous videos that the awareness of where beat one is often occurs where somebody is beginning to sing their phrases, their musical sentences, in and around beat one, and even often more specifically that chords change on beat one. So let's listen for chord changing right now. And when you hear a chord change, we're going to establish that as beat one. And if you're right in getting beat one when you think you've got it, you should be able to have a chord change on beat one again down the road as the song goes on. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's only listen for that. I don't want you to worry about the pulse. I don't want you to worry about snare drums and all that stuff. Just chord changes. There's a chord, 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 chord. I hope you get that. Then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me give you a picture here, and you'll see this in your chord chart for the song anyway. There's a chord that played, that started for 4 beats. Whatever the chord was, it doesn't matter. And then after 4 beats, it changed into another chord. And then after those 4 beats, it changed into a third chord. But that third chord lasted for a total of 8 beats. 4 beats in one measure, 4 beats in another measure. So if you can hold it in your mind, what you just heard there was a measure of a certain chord with 4 beats going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last 2 measures were occupied by 1 chord. Even that is going to help you get a sense of how to strum a song because you're getting a sense of the structure of the song. The better you understand the inner workings of a framed house, the better you're able to look at it from the outside and envision what that framing looks like. If you've never stripped a house down or built it, it's hard to understand the structural framework that's going on beneath the skin of the house. So this is what we're doing. We're stripping things away to make sure you can see the bones of what's happening, and then basically you build it back up and you've got your solution. So I want to listen for these chord changes again. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chord. This is the same chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Chord.
You fall asleep with the window
Same chord.
open.
Chord.
You love to
New
listen
chord.
to
New chord.
night.
Same chord. 1, 2,
When
3,
a
4.
storm
1, 2, 3, 4.
muscles
1, 2,
and
3,
leaves
4.
you
1, 2, 3, 4.
broken.
1, 2, 3,
You're
4. 1, 2, 3,
always
4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sometimes you
1,
wish
2, 3,
that
4.
your
1,
heart
2, 3,
could
4.
be
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3,
traded
4.
for
1, 2, 3, 4.
one
1, 2,
that
3,
will
4.
not
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
but what good is a heart gone jaded? Sometimes only pain tells the truth. You want it to.
So it goes into, some other section of the song. Again, we don't need to go through the whole tune, because once we get the basic architecture, it pretty much applies for the whole song in a lot of the music that I'm assuming you would be listening to, unless you're into very avant-garde music and some forms of classical. Things can change and go in a completely different direction. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about basic tunes that you'd be singing around the campfire, having a good time on a nice summer evening. So keep that in mind. So what have we got? Again, I'll just quickly summarize. We've got the pulse. We've got the snare drum. We've got a sense of chord changing, which is a good indicator of where beat 1 is. We have it all. Look, I didn't even need a guitar. It's a listening experience. You can certainly have the guitar with you. I'm going to have it here in a moment, because now we need to establish which of the 3 basic strumming mechanisms, in your opinion and my opinion, fit the feel or the vibe of that song. And again, for the sake of training, you want to limit the variables that you're mixing into this process so that you only choose one strumming mechanism for now. Yes, as your experience grows and you develop more insight into this process, you will realize that there are times when there are portions of a song that kind of rely on BSM1, and then other portions that shift into the 3rd mechanism and then down. It's like shifting gears in a car. You're never always just staying in one completely, although you could. You run the risk of kind of boring the audience if it's just the same strum pattern from start to finish. For the time being, that's okay. If that's where you're at and that's how you're going to get things kick-started, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we've got that portion done. I'm going to see you on the next video with my guitar, and we're going to start to establish the basic strumming mechanism that we feel best matches that tune. See you then.